Hey folks, thanks for joining me here at CityCon today. I hope you're enjoying the event. The purpose of this talk today is to talk a little bit about how we can make the deployment and management of our applications easier on Kubernetes, right? I think we can all agree that Kubernetes is pretty much the de facto engine when deploying and managing your containerized applications today. And that a lot of organizations, they are either starting or they're scaling the Kubernetes initiatives. But one thing that remains open is how can we improve the developer experience and productivity? Kubernetes is awesome, is a strong tool, but it also introduces a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to the development side. A little bit about me before we get started. I'm a sysadmin, and I say sysadmin because I had an opportunity to start back when we were dealing with a bare metal servers and then VMs and so on and so forth, creating shell scripts to automate stuff. We didn't have any of the Terraform or even Ansible and any of these things. I'll say I'm a lover of pizza and I'm a lover of music. My original goal was to be a musician. I realized I was definitely not good enough for that. I was not going to cut it. So I decided to go into sysadmin and software engineering. Sometimes I still think I'm not good enough as well, but can't make the change now. And I really like to work on making things easy, right? Especially when it comes towards developer-centric solutions. I think we already have to deal with a lot during our day-to-day, and deploying and managing our applications should definitely not be in our way as a complex task. And if we look at the adoption story for Kubernetes, right? We see this across a bunch of companies. That's how it starts for a lot of folks. You see people talking about Kubernetes everywhere, right? And you're like, well, I'm excited. I gotta try this thing. And when you talk to your teammates, have you used Kubernetes? Do you like it? And the usual response is it is awesome, because you get so many things for free. You get service discovery, scheduling, self-healing, and so many other things. You should definitely jump into this bandwagon. You decide to give it a try, and you spin up a Kubernetes cluster in your laptop or in a cloud managed service. You deploy your first Hello World application, and this is easy. And you're like, I'm doing great, and I should go deeper into that. I really nailed this Kubernetes thing. But as you start bringing your systems or your applications or more complex applications, that's when you run into that moment that you start learning about deployments, services, RBAC, PVC, and so many other things. And that's the awakening moment, right? If we start bringing it into kind of a day-to-day task, you have your happy developer. My organization is adopting Kubernetes. I'm a developer here in the team. I want to jump into that bandwagon. I have a website. I'll start with a website. It shouldn't be too complex. And I'll get it deployed on Kubernetes. You copy someone's Helm chart. And you look into the chart YAML file. Looks easy. It's pretty much a description and a version. And then you open values YAML file. Here you start seeing new concepts where you're like, well, okay, repository, it's my image. I know where my image is located. But what are the resources that I should assign to my application? And what is readiness probe? And what is Knative deploy? What are all these things? And you kind of work your way around it. But as you start digging deeper and you go into the deployment YAML file, you're like, wow, wait, this is not as easy as expected, right? And as you start as you keep going through your Helm chart, basically you go from being that developer that is optimistic about implementing Kubernetes to basically this. Why are we even doing this thing? Right? So an easy task for us, just deploying a website, was super easy. Now it becomes super complicated, deploying and managing my website and the updates. And the end of the day, the scenario that ends up is that we as developers, we are no longer just deploying our application code, but now we have to learn Terraform, Helm charts, Kubernetes objects, and the deployment of applications that were easy before now becomes super complex on the developer side. And managing this at scale becomes even harder, right? And the scenario that we see folks looking for out there is, I want to deploy my application. Doesn't matter if I'm deploying it from Git, from CI pipeline, or from a terminal, but I need something in between my Kubernetes and my pipeline or my application code. Something that allows me to deploy my application like I used to deploy, or at least as close as possible to the way I used to deploy my applications before, and not have application deployment and management as a complex task and a barrier in the way. And that's where Ketch comes in as a project. Ketch allows you to do exactly that. Ketch allows you to deploy your applications, and we're going to go through a demo right now, but deploy your applications from Git, pipeline, or your terminal in a way that you are focusing on your application code rather than creating and maintaining a bunch of Kubernetes related objects. Ketch in turn receives your application code or application image. It builds all the objects automatically and deploy these objects in the cluster, and it gives you automatically visibility into your application, how to access it, the status of your application without having to learn all the complexities of Kubernetes. So let's see it in action. All right, so let's see what we have here. I'm going to be using a GKE cluster for this demo. You can use AKS, EKS, or Minikube or K3s, for example. Ketch is not limited in any ways to GKE. I'm just using that for the purpose of the demo today. I'm going to be following the documentation available on learn.theketch.io. And it is available and open here. And we're going to be basically going through the process of creating a pool, deploying an application, and accessing that application. If we follow through the getting started, the first step is to install the Ketch CLI. I already have Ketch CLI installed here on my machine, so I don't need to do that. The next step is to install Cert Manager and ingress, traffic or Istio, for example, and cluster issuer. In my case, since this is an existing cluster, I already have Istio installed and I have cluster issuer and cert manager already in place. If that's your case as well, you don't need to do that. You can use the existing ones that you have in your cluster. If it is a brand new cluster, then you can install it by following these instructions. The last step for you is to install the Ketch controller, which you can do directly from this command here. I already have Ketch as a controller running here locally, so I can see if there are any existing applications. In my case, I don't have any application. So great. For you to install and start using Ketch, then CLI, first step. If you don't have one, install Cert Manager, ingress, and cluster issuer. If you do, then you're going to see how you can link Ketch back to those and install the Ketch controller. It's a fairly easy process and quick. So let's see. Ketch has a concept of a pool. A pool basically maps to a namespace in your cluster. They are the same thing. Why Ketch uses pool for your namespace is so you can limit where your applications and the objects are being deployed. And I'm going to be deploying this application from my CLI, but we can also see how this can be deployed directly from your CI pipeline as well. The first step is add a pool to Ketch. So Ketch understands and connects to a specific namespace in your cluster. For us to do that, we're going to need to give Ketch the ingress service endpoint. Let's get services. Okay, so I have my Istio ingress service endpoint right here. So let's do that. Ketch pool add dev, and then my IP is going to be this one, and ingress type Istio, just so Ketch knows how to connect to it. Istio, there you go. If we do Ketch pool list, for example, we should see we have a Ketch, a pool called dev, and it's in a status created. And you can see that when you create a pool on Ketch, it automatically creates a namespace for you in your cluster. Next up for us is to create the application itself. So before we can deploy our image, we have to create an application so Ketch knows that an application code will be deployed there. So we're doing Ketch app create bulletin board, and we're saying it should use the pool dev, the pool that we just created. If we do Ketch app list, I can see that I have my bulletin board here and it's in dev. The state of my application is just created because we have not deployed anything yet, but I can see it already gives me an address here. Now we're gonna do the app deploy, right? I'm just saying Ketch app deploy, the name of the app that we created, bulletin board, and where my image is located. Great. Now we can see that Ketch will start the deployment automatically. You can see right away that I haven't created any deployment file, any service file, or anything else from a Kubernetes perspective. Me as a developer, I'm just pushing my my application image to Ketch, and Ketch in turn will work with with Kubernetes on the back to have our image running. If you see kubectl get namespace, for example, you can see Ketch dev, which is the namespace tied to the pool we created with Ketch. And if we do kubectl get pods Ketch dev, we can see the application is even already running. If we do Ketch app list, for example, now we see our application is running. If I get this address, and let's see, if I try to go to my browser, there you go. I see my application running. And again, I didn't have to do any Kubernetes deployment or service files or understand. So now you're getting your developers to be able to deploy their applications quickly and maintain those applications quickly. They can go further and add things such as add a CNAME to their applications. Even though Ketch gives you this address by default, you can actually add, for example, Ketch CNAME add. For example, you can say app1.theketch.io and then the name of the application, which is bulletin board. In this case, Ketch will automatically connect to Istio, create the certificates, apply, and add that CNAME to your application as available. That's great. Now you can quickly deploy your applications. And now with Ketch, you have a replicable environment that you can deploy using Ketch in a local cluster, and you can have Ketch installed in your company's cluster or in your team's cluster. So the deployment of your images are exactly the same. You don't need to customize deployment files or YAML files or anything like that to have your applications deploy. So you develop it once and you test it anywhere and you deploy it anywhere with Ketch. But we know that you don't deploy only from your CLI, right? You also deploy your applications from your CI pipeline. Let me try to find one here. Great. Here's an example. I'm running Ketch with my GitHub Actions, but the same thing applies to any other CI pipeline that you have running. My GitHub Actions is basically pulling from master. It's building my image. It's installing requirements that I have, and it's storing my Docker image in a Google Container Registry. And as soon as this process is done, I'm actually setting up Ketch, which is basically installing the CLI during the pipeline. And down here, I'm adding a pool using GitHub Actions secrets. I'm passing the name of the pool, the ingress IP, basically what we did before through our CLI. I'm creating an application dynamically from my CI pipeline, and I'm deploying that image. right? So you can do exactly the same thing from your pipeline that we just did from our CLI. So now you can get your developers or your team to deploy your application consistently, either from your pipeline or from your CLI. For example, you have that repeatable process. And again, you're focused only on your application code rather than on Kubernetes YAML files. So focusing back again on the developer productivity or the developer experience itself. There are many other things that you can do with Ketch. If you're deploying specific applications that you need deployment hooks, for example, or if you need to tie specific ports to your application so they can run properly on Kubernetes, you can do this directly from here using a catch.yaml file that you can pass along with your image when you're running deployments. But this is also available to you and your team. You can find more information about Ketch directly on Ketch's GitHub. It is available here. Like the project, would love to see you collaborating and participating, sending questions, sending ideas, as well as you can learn more about Ketch directly from the Ketch documentation and join our community. Would love to have you and participate. But again, let's see how together we can improve the developer experience and developer productivity. I'm always open to any questions, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.